Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to introduce to you Julia Shopik. She's an author and also a journalist, and came to this field because, like many of us, a loved one, in this case her husband, came down with cancer. So she started researching. She has a blog, she's written books, and we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. The next treatment is the ketogenic diet. Do any of you know about it? Yeah. It is a very high-fat, low-protein, low-carbohydrate diet, and its original use, the one I'm going to talk about, and the one I talk about in Honest Medicine, was for pediatric epilepsy. And now it's actually being studied for brain tumors and other diseases too. But as I said, it's a high-fat, low-carb, low-protein diet. And the interesting thing about this one is that until anti-seizure medications were started to be invented in the 30s, this was the standard of care at Johns Hopkins, at Mayo Clinic, and this was all that was known for pediatric epilepsy. But then came Big Pharma, and then came the medications, and it fell out of favor. By the way, there were studies done, small studies, all the way from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, all the way to the present, showing that the ketogenic diet is effective in, I think the figure was 67% of cases of children with pediatric epilepsy. Now, for some reason, doctors didn't want to prescribe, they didn't want to recommend it after the drugs came. So it would have died, the diet would have died, in my opinion, if not for a wonderful man named Jim Abrams. He's the only hero of this book, you know, champion of the treatments that I write about in my book, that is not a doctor. He is amazing. He was the Hollywood producer of the funny movie Airplane, the one with Leslie Nielsen, and also of Hot Shots, and but then something not so funny happened. In 1993, his infant son Charlie started having what they call intractable seizures, seizures that would not quit. Some days he would have hundreds of them. And of course, Jim, with his prestige and all that, he could go to the best of the best of the best hospitals. And the best of the best of the best hospitals kept drugging this poor child. There is a Dateline NBC video that's on YouTube that shows little Charlie literally bumping into walls. He had to have a harness on his back so that he was so drugged. He was so drugged up. And yet, whenever Jim would say, oh, I don't, anyway, they would give him combinations of the drugs too. They even did a surgery on his brain. Nothing worked. So Jim actually went to the library. This was before internet days. And he was actually in the process of researching what is our family going to do with this child who the doctors say will never get better. And he found that there had been a diet since the 1920s that was, so he took this information excitedly to the doctors. By the way, he wrote a chapter in my book too, and the beginning of the chapter is quotes from all these studies, you know, the ketogenic diet, da-da-da-da-da. Just, you know, loads of quotes. And what do you think the doctor said? It won't work. And he's like, well, you know, it's been written up to, it won't work, trust us. So he allowed Charlie to have a brain tumor, excuse me, that was my husband, a brain surgery to try to stop the seizures. That didn't work, and Jim said, enough. And he took Charlie to Johns Hopkins. He was put on the diet. 48 hours later, seizures stopped. Not only did seizures stop, I know, you could clap when you hear that, right? They stopped, and they did, you know, he's fine now. But, of course, the drugs that he was on and the surgery have left him with some deficits, but he has not had seizures, and he doesn't have to stay on the diet anymore. Now, Jim first was excited. Oh, this is fantastic. Then he got pissed. He said, why did it take me so long to find this diet? Why are other parents being discouraged to do it? And then he said, aha, light bulb moment. In my position, his position of being a Hollywood producer and very well connected, he said, I can do something. And he did. The first thing he did was he got his friend Meryl Streep to do an instructional video about the ketogenic diet. If you go on charliefoundation.org, CHARLIE foundation.org, you will see Meryl Streep, you'll see this video of Meryl Streep. And so through that, then what happened was that somebody on the set of that was working with Dateline NBC and said, this is a cool story. So Jim and Charlie's story was on Dateline NBC. And then in one of the Dateline things, he shows the boxes and boxes and boxes of letters he got from parents. Where do I get this diet? And then he did one more thing. Meryl Streep came through again. Meryl Streep played the mom of a kid with epilepsy in a movie which you can get actually on YouTube called First Do No Harm. And it was a made-for-TV movie of a mom who was kept from getting the diet and really, really, really she did get the diet and it did work. So Jim, through the Charlie Foundation, now he has hired a dietitian. The dietitian goes around the world, not just around the country, educating doctors and other staff at hospitals. And thanks to Jim, this diet is now being administered in, I believe it's 150 hospitals around the world. Yeah, isn't that? I love that man. It's sort of like, he once told me that now he can sleep at night. He told me this recently. We've become good friends, as I have with most of the people that are in the book. He told me he can sleep at night knowing that the Charlie Foundation website is up there and people can now find the diet.